Okay, welcome to the second lesson. And for this lesson, we'll now take a focus on cells. So we had an introduction to what life sciences is, and now we're going to take a deeper look into the building blocks of life sciences, all the building blocks of all living things, which are cells. Anything that is alive is made up of cells, or at least one cell. Now, the human body itself contains trillions of cells, and that is what makes us multicellular. So, these are what cells are. Cells are the fundamental building blocks of all living things. And a living thing is something that needs to follow a checklist. So, we need to take a look at what are the characteristics that define something that is alive, a living thing. So, for something to be considered living, it needs to follow 7 different characteristics. First, something that is alive needs to be able to adapt. This means that it can adjust to its habitat or the environment that it lives in. So it doesn't get too hot, too cold, etc. Adapting is being able to overcome something that might harm you. Then something that is alive needs to be able to go through self-regulation, also known as homeostasis. So homeostasis is when we are able to regulate our temperature, our hormones, anything that is within our body, that we are able to keep it at a standard pace. That is homeostasis. So the internal environment refers to the environment within our living bodies. And if we are able to regulate hormones and temperature, that forms part of homeostasis. To be living, we also need to be able to reproduce, either sexually or asexually. Sexually occurs between 2 participants, whereas asexually occurs only between 1 participant. So an example of asexual reproduction is seahorses. Seahorses will reproduce by themselves. And typically the male seahorse is who is going to reproduce by themselves. Living organisms also need to be able to metabolize. So metabolism is when energy is transferred through chemical processes. So for example, when we eat bread, the energy from that bread is going to be transferred through chemicals in our bodies that will allow us to then move and speak. And this is where metabolism comes in. When we consume food, it gives us energy. We also need to be able to organize. Now, organization specifically refers to the cells within us. So human beings have the same amount of cells and the same type of cells, and they are organized in the same form, more or less. There are mutations that occur, but generally they are organized in the same way. Anything that's alive also needs to be able to grow. Now, this doesn't just mean get bigger by increasing in physical size, but also increasing in cell size and cell number, and also being able to heal. So if you have a cut on your hand, you need to be able to heal that cut, or else different bacteria might enter that wound. Then the last one that living organisms need to be able to do is respond to stimuli. Responding to stimuli refers to our reactions to different things that cause stimulant. So anything that stimulates you is something that messes with your senses. Light will mess with your senses. Heat messes with your senses. Loud sounds. So the way that we respond to those allows us to be alive because it causes us to move, it causes us to make sounds, etc. And that's what makes us living. So there are 7 different characteristics that you need to remember that make something living. Next, we also need to take a look at the different parts of a cell. So here, we're going to take a look at all the important bits on the diagram that you'll find in your study unit. Firstly, the cell membrane. The function of the cell membrane is to, not only is it going to control what enters and exits the cell, so it's like the wall that protects what's inside the cell, it's also going to make sure to maintain homeostasis. Now, this means that the cell membrane is responsible for regulating whatever is within the cell. It's keeping it stable. Then we have to know which organelles are found in both plant and animal cells, because plant and animal cells are similar. There are differences, obviously, because they are not are part of the same kingdom. Therefore, they cannot have the same cell types. If they did have the same cell types, then they would be placed within the same kingdom, but they are not. So there is something that is found within both the animal and plant cell that makes them similar, and that is firstly, they have vacuoles. They have nucleus, a nucleus, and they also have mitochondria. So we're going to look a little further into the study unit to understand those more. But basically, the vacuole in the cell is what allows the transfer. The nucleus is what contains genetic material, and the mitochondrion is known as the powerhouse of the cell. It is the one that it is responsible for producing the energy in the cell. So, what are the unique structures of a plant cell then? What makes it different from an animal cell? Plant cells are unique because the cell wall is a rigid shape. If you take a look at the image of the human cell over here, this is basically an animal cell, since we fall under the kingdom Animalia, and you'll see that it is round, it is wonky, there are some density in, but the plant cell is like a tight little box, so quite rigid. And plant cells contain chloroplast for photosynthesis, whereas animal cells are not going to contain a chloroplast. We are not made up of little green cells that soak up sunlight. So therefore, only a plant cell is going to contain chloroplast, not animal cells. We also have to know what the unique structures of an animal cell then is, since they are different. Animal cells contain centrioles, and these are not found in your plants. Now, very important, we need to know what the function of the nucleus is. The nucleus is the center part of the cell that contains all the genetic material. So this little part here, let's zoom in. This little part of the cell is going to contain all the information that will allow for reproduction to take place. So this part of the cell is what transfers the information that says, listen, we need to transfer blue hair, blue eyes, blonde hair, etc. The cell nucleus also controls all the cell's activities. So in a way, it works like the brain that tells the cells what to do. Now, within the cell, we also have cytoplasm. And cytoplasm is a jelly-like substance within the cell that holds all the organelles in place. So all of the different parts of the cell that we're referring to, the mitochondria, the centriole, all of those are referred to as organelles. And it works the same as when we refer to our organs in our body. Our organs include the heart, the liver, etc. Now, the organs or the organelles of a cell include the centriole for animals, the nucleus, etc. Speaking of organelles, we have to take a look at what ribosomes do. Ribosomes are important because they are the ones that produce proteins. They are also responsible for the rough appearance of the rough endoplasmic reticulum. So, over here on our little diagram, you'll see by the green part, we've got the rough endoplasmic reticulum. And then the blue part is the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. So the endoplasmic plasmic reticulum will start off smooth, and then once the ribosomes have created or produced the proteins, they will attach to the endoplasmic reticulum, causing it to become a rough endoplasmic reticulum. Now, the Golgi apparatus is what is responsible for packaging and transporting the proteins. So once the ribosomes have produced proteins, the Golgi apparatus will then transfer those proteins after packaging them. We also have lysosomes, and lysosomes are very important because they are the ones that are responsible for breaking down any waste material within the cells. So just like with humans, when we eat food, we're going to produce waste. And that waste needs to be excreted. Within a cell, whatever gets taken in is going to produce waste, and the lysosomes are then responsible for taking that waste out of the cell. Getting back to the mitochondrion is known as the powerhouse of the cell, and it is then also used to produce the energy of the cell, and is the most involved in cellular respiration. We also have to know what the function of the chloroplast in the plant cell is, and very important, the chloroplast is the green in all of the sunlight that will allow photosynthesis to take place. Now, just again, you have to remember the difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. And now that we have learned the different parts of the cells, we can see that single-celled organisms like the kingdom of Monera and Protista that lack a cell nucleus are going to be prokaryotic because they only contain one cell. But eukaryotic cells, they're going to have membrane-bound organelles within them, as well as a cell nucleus, because they are multicellular. Last thing is that you also need to know what the cytoskeleton does. The cytoskeleton helps maintain the shape and the movement of the cell. So it works the same way as our skeletons. After you've completed the summaries for this unit, you will have to you're required to then complete assignment 2, which will also contain 20 multiple choice questions that are going to test you on your knowledge of cells.